Welcome back, riders. I've enjoyed taking random bikes on random adventures for years. And although I've been able to get away with quite a bit on a standard bicycle frame, space limitations have always been an issue. The introduction of cargo bikes have made some of the obvious things easier, such as carrying groceries and going camping, but what about some of the more oddball outdoor activities? Does the KBO Ranger's ability to carry more stuff on the bike make up for the fact that it requires more space to store the bike? So to help answer this question, at least for me, over the past 2 weeks I've been taking it on some random outdoor hobbies and adventures just to see what I can get away with. Does this bike make what I like to do easier, and does it open the door to make more things possible? There's a video link in the description if you'd like a detailed first impressions about what I like and dislike on this bike, and so far my opinion has pretty much stayed the same, but today I'm focusing mainly on the bike's capabilities to see if it can justify its own existence. And although this is my updated review of the KBO Ranger, I've only owned 2 cargo bikes, so I'm no way capable of telling you whether or not this is the best option. Much of what I'll be discussing is just for the general ownership of a cargo bike. On that note, purpose-driven ownership is what comes to mind anytime I utilize this bike. Simply put, I'm never riding the KBO Ranger unless I'm using it for its intended purpose, to carry a bunch of stuff. To be blunt, out of the 2 cargo bikes I've tested so far, they're not great at being bikes. They're big, cumbersome, and have weird riding dynamics. This is not something I say in order to come down on the bike, it's just so that people realize what they're getting into. During my testing, I've found that riding conditions are going to have a lot to do with how useful something like this is going to be. KBO does have nice big tires which help a little bit, but I've found that the rigid frame causes sensitive cargo to be at risk. A bit of padding and carefully securing your loads is going to be important if you have roads that are anything like mine. Usually I don't mind whether a fat tire bike comes with spoked or alloyed wheels, both have their advantages. I think alloyed wheels would have been a better option for KBO to use on their Ranger. This comes down to convenience and reliability, whereas it's true any bike would have to adjust and replace spokes if you ride it enough, cargo bikes subjected to heavier loads are going to be doing this more often. And there's a pretty good chance that the targeted consumer for a cargo bike might not have as much, if any, experience dealing with these issues. I'm not qualified enough to condone the carrying of precious cargo, but during my brief testing of 2 minions on the back of the bike, I learned that there should have been a padding option, both for the seat and for the rear bar. Despite this bike having some odd handling characteristics that I pointed out in my first impressions, I found that it handled carrying dynamic cargo quite well. The random movements of my unpredictable passengers didn't really seem to affect the bike's stability. In fact, the weight in the rear seemed to make it more controllable. That being said, this testing was limited at low speeds and short distances. I couldn't tell you, nor would I recommend, what this bike might do at high speeds with passengers. Being a cargo bike designed to carry loads, it's not geared for high speeds. Only 20 miles an hour on the motor and 15 miles an hour on the pedals before my legs start to run away. But having those low gear ratios and high torque comes in handy when you're carrying a load up a hill. I always like to mention whether or not a bike's throttle is locked to its pedal assist level or if it's independent, and then usually not give it much more thought than that. But I find on a cargo bike, I enjoy having full throttle available at all times, no matter which pedal assist level I'm in. I find that when the bike's loaded down and I'm focusing more on control and where I'm going, I don't want to deal with shifting through a bunch of pedal assist levels to get the power I need, so I usually just leave it in level 1 and adjust everything with the throttle, pedaling only when the bike needs assistance. Had KBO decided to lock the throttle to the pedal assist level, I feel like it would have been a lot more annoying, so I'm glad they didn't. What about for carrying oddball cargo and using this as a possible vehicle replacement? If you're single and a city dweller, this could definitely be practical. Whereas only you truly know what you need to get on a shopping trip, I see this being more difficult if you live in a multi-person household. If you average 1 to 2 shopping trips a week, it's too many bulky items you have to pick up, which would just make this cumbersome. Having said that, I never thought I'd be taking one of my full-size RC airplanes out to fly on a bike, so, who knows what you can get away with. I prefer to do my range test on bikes after having cycled their batteries many times, but because I only use the Ranger when I'm carrying random cargo, this bike doesn't see a lot of use, so I'm forced to do my range test on a pretty new battery. Having range tested many different electric bikes, I've noticed that there's usually 2 different ways the battery bar indicators will give you an estimation on how much power is left in the battery. Some displays will show you how much is left in the battery based off of your average riding conditions, how much power you've been using over a certain amount of time. The battery readout on the Ranger is more direct. It doesn't take any averages. It simply shows you how much power is left in the battery based off of how much power you're using at that exact moment. For example, if you're climbing a hill with a heavy load at full throttle, the battery bar indicator, even on a freshly charged battery, might drop below half, telling you that if you continue to ride as you are right now, you're not going to have a whole lot of battery. However, once you crest a hill and let off the throttle, the indicator will jump back up, indicating that based off of your current riding conditions, you have a lot of range left. For me, this isn't a good or bad thing, it just means it makes average range estimations trickier. Having said all that, I was able to get 33 miles out of the bike on a single battery charge over the course of 2 weeks, carrying random loads of cargo and using pretty much throttle most of the time. I really don't pedal this bike very much. Let's see what it is. Well, it's just a penny, but hey, at least it's not trash. My second find, appears to be another penny. Really should have brought a spray bottle. I think it's a quarter, but I'm still getting a feel for all the numbers. Yeah, I can see a Washington on there. Cool! I'll use this in my new gumball machine when it shows up. Is that another quarter? This one's bent. Although I ride bikes every day, whether it's to go to work and come home or on a weekly adventure, I still feel a bit out of place on a cargo bike. I mostly just find myself looking for excuses to try and use it, but so far haven't found a situation where I need it. Now, much of that has to do simply with the fact that this bike was sent to me. Had I been somebody looking for this bike, that situation may be different. Somebody with the right biking infrastructure who doesn't want to or can't use a large motor vehicle could certainly find use with a bike like this, but at the end of the day, it's still a bike. You're still exposed to the elements when it's really hot, really cold, windy, or rainy, and if you have to do shopping for more than one person with this being your only mode of transportation, that's just going to be difficult. I'm willing to bet that individuals who use their bike for fun or just transportation from point A to point B wouldn't get much use out of this either. However, if you find yourself riding a bike always trying to carry as much cargo as you can, whether you want to or have to, then an upgrade to a cargo bike isn't going to let you down. It does what it's designed to do really well. And somebody who makes the mistake of purchasing these on a whim because they thought they looked interesting would probably have buyer's remorse after a couple of weeks. On the flip side, somebody purchasing a bike like this because they have plans for it, I don't see them having any regrets. A bike like the Ranger is an investment for somebody who knows exactly what they're looking for. Things like fishing, camping, courier service like DoorDash or Uber Eats, use on a job site to carry tools and small parts around, a short-range small passenger carrier, or somebody who just has to carry a lot of small cargo back and forth, can definitely get their money's worth out of this bike, but really only if you plan on using it for those purposes all the time. The bike's not massive in and of itself, but it has a wide footprint thanks to its cargo carrying capabilities, and if you don't plan on using it much, it's just going to take up a lot of storage. To sum up my thoughts of the KBO Ranger, the bike is really good at what it's designed to do, carry a bunch of cargo. We've said that before, and although I haven't tested many cargo bikes, from what I've seen, this one has the most options for carrying the most cargo. So I hope you guys got some useful information out of today's video, or at the very least were mildly entertained. And until next time, ride safe.